Okay, so you know how atheists are often accused of wanting to make ourselves God? Well, of course, that's a nonsense accusation, but today, proof that you are the ultimate creator, God of your world. How can I not look at this? I have to look at this.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I hope you guys are doing good. I hope you guys are enjoying and embracing your new day of creation.
I'm doing great. I'm glad to see you're in a chipper mood. I'm in a chipper mood too. I don't know what this new day of creation stuff means, but it sounds cool. Let's roll with it.
I just kind of hung up my laundry.
Oh, you do laundry? You're one of those people? I don't do that. It distracts my spirit. I've never watched any of this. It's got a robust sensory profile after all these years. Very distinctive. It's part of my brand.
And I was thinking, maybe I should share that, hanging up your laundry in the sunlight actually helps to charge the fibers in your clothing, okay?
Yeah. What do you mean? Did they get warm?
It absorbs the positive vibrations of the sun. It absorbs energetic code from the sun that helps us evolve, that helps us ascend, that helps us heal, and so on and so forth. So,
Oh, that. Of course. How did I not realize that was what you meant? Silly me. I do have some questions, though. Lots of questions. One of them, I guess, would be, what does any of that even mean? What's a positive vibration? How do you distinguish it from a negative one? Are we talking like infrared versus UVB? Or is it something else entirely, like cheerfulness waves? Your shirt seems to be picking up a lot of those, so I guess that's good. Then you say there's also an energetic code. I guess something similar to Wi-Fi, except that your body can pick it up and make you evolve. But see, the problem is I'm not seeing any energetic code rays flying around in your background. I'm looking, I can't find them. See, in my background, they're all over the place. There's one. There's one. Oh, there goes one right there. That's a big one. That's why evolution's happening all the time around here. That's why the fish are always turning into frogs, and the frogs are always turning into people. Crocoducks out the wazoo. The bacteria are getting married to each other. The rocks are turning into your grandpa. That tree over there, it used to be an ash tree till a couple of years ago, and then one day it just evolved into a whiskey roast chicken monster. But you got none of that. It's going to take ages for your laundry to turn into freakish abominations. So I'm not sure if you know what you're talking about.
I just wanted to share that with you guys real quick.
Oh. Why? Well, thanks, I guess. Anyway, I appreciate the thought. So that was a pretty good video. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.
Also, I wanted to share something else.
All right, go on.
I have, if we listen to Spirit, and Spirit is always like, you're the creators. You guys create your reality.
Do we, though, do that and hear the Spirit say that to us? That doesn't sound like a thing that at least I do. Who's we? And who's Spirit? How do we know this Spirit is a reliable source of information? Like, I hate to play the devil's advocate here, or God's advocate? Yeah, devil's advocate is definitely not the right term. It's kind of the opposite of right, because what I'm trying to say is, the Christians insist that when you hear a spirit telling you things like that, that's the devil. Now, I'm not saying they're right and you're wrong. I, of all people, am not going to say that. But I'm also not saying they're wrong and you're right. How am I supposed to figure out who to listen to here?
What you see on the outside is a reflection of who you are on the inside and all of that, right?
What are we talking about here? Physiognomy? What you see on the outside reflects who you are on the inside? I can't see this video going there, but then again, I can't see this video going anywhere. I have no idea what's happening.
You guys have heard that before.
I definitely have not. I would have had a strange life if I'd heard that before. And now I've heard it.
I've noticed that, although...
Your backyard is a lot noisier than I expected it to be. This seemed like such a peaceful video for a while. It's so loud it's scaring your cat.
I've noticed that, although...
I don't have any reason to show your cat. I just did that because it's YouTube and it might increase my watch time. Even you look a little annoyed about it, though. It's marring even your exuberant chipperosity.
That is a very great idea, and a lot of people accept the idea.
Right. Yes. A lot of people accept the idea. What was the idea? Physiognomy. Right.
A lot of people also struggle with the idea on how to apply that or how to, make that part of the reality.
Yeah, well, that's, why you gotta read some old, weird pseudoscience books from a couple hundred years ago. I got like 50 or 60 of those in the house, so I could probably give you some recommendations. No reason, I'm just curious.
It kind of remains for many people in a sort of a belief system, something they can't really prove.
Yeah, that being the case does seem to be sort of the general consensus nowadays. Don't worry, Emanuelle. They can't keep us down for much longer. I wish James Randi wasn't dead and living in Steve Huff's ghost phone. I'd go on a show and win $1 million reading his thoughts by measuring his philtrum with a micrometer.
Okay, guides, spirits.
Yes, can I help you?
I'm looking to reach out to James Randi, who passed away at the age of 92.
What do you mean? He's already hovering over your box.
But the thing is, there is proof. There is proof, people.
Of course there's proof! What is it? What is it?
And I just wanted to share that with you. So,
You wanted to share that there's proof. Okay, noted. Thank you.
just think of it this way.
No, I'm not going to think of it your way. If you want to think the same way, you think of it my way. I'm done letting people push me around, telling me how to think about stuff. I'm the one who pushes. I wasn't going to mention the booger, but I think you got it.
What you see outside,
Whoa, that's a full-on double rainbow. No, never mind, that's the peyote.
right? We see with our eyes.
Again, who's we? Speak for yourself.
But what is exactly that we're seeing?
Not a double rainbow, unfortunately.
Because if you think about it, we're not really seeing with the eyes, right? Science says the eyes is connected to
The foot bone.
optical nerves, which are connected to the brain, and it is the brain that processes the light influx into our eyes and then processes what we see.
Okay, that's pretty good. I can agree with that. How does this relate to physiognomy? Am I missing something here?
So basically, it's the brain, according to science, it is the brain that tells us what we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, the brain also is us, but sure, it tells itself what it's seeing, in some not very literal sense. It processes visual signals and uses them for stuff.
Right? It's not the eyes. The eyes are just a tool that processes light.
Well, sure, but without the eyes, you're not seeing anything because the brain is using that tool. I mean, if anything, the eyes are kind of an extension of the brain. They're one means by which it interacts with the external world. So it's not like you don't see with your eyes. It's just that the eyes are not the total picture of how vision works. There are more components to it than just them. So it's not really accurate to say the brain sees and the eyes don't. The accurate statement would be that the entire system sees, and the brain and the eyes are doing separate but both equally necessary functions. They're both critical components of that system. And I don't want to be too nitpicky, it's just I know how these videos are, and I want to make sure that we're a bit clear on the reality of what we're talking about. It's worth taking a second for that.
Right? But what we're actually seeing has to come from the brain.
Well, the sensation of seeing a unified visual image is produced by the brain, but using visual input coming from the eyes, though. Don't just leave them out. It's not the same thing if they're not there. The brain does the processing, but that processing is not done completely void of any input from the outside world.
Okay. Well, if you think about it, the brain has always been in your skull. It's never been outside.
I keep telling you to speak for yourself, but you don't listen.
So how does the brain know what you're seeing?
That's the eyes. That's what the eyes are for. You said they're a tool. That's what the tool does. If they're not doing that at least, what the hell are they for? Are you telling me that's not good enough? That despite having these tools that transmit visual information to the brain has no means of accessing visual information unless it steps outside your skull and looks for itself?
How does the brain correctly translate those signals in truth, reality truth, physical reality truth?
So basically, how does the brain use the signals to create an understanding of the external world that is accurate by some metric, within a reasonable tolerance, I guess, to the external world? That's the survival benefit of the feature. That's why the feature's there, is to enable the organism to have a sufficiently accurate understanding of the external world that the organism has a better chance of not interacting with the external world in a way that gets it killed. That's what senses are. They're fundamentally built around interaction with the real world. That's why the brain has tools like eyes in the first place, to allow it to interface with certain features of the world. What I'm saying is vision is not just arbitrary or hallucinatory or imaginary. Now, of course, that being said, what's being generated is a subjective experience of signals representing the world. Color, for example, is not something that actually exists as such in the world. It's a mental phenomenon. It's sort of a labeling system that the brain's using to judge as best it can which wavelengths of light have hit the retina, which is configured in such a way as to represent a roughly reliable field of view and so on. And then from that wavelength data, if you want to call it that, I don't quite like the word data in this context, but it's close enough. It has to interpret which objects are separate from each other, how far away they are, all these kind of things that are not directly received, but implied by the incoming data. So there is a degree of subjectivity to it, which you can see by how easily it can be fooled by things like optical illusions. Nevertheless, though, even when you see an optical illusion, that's still based on you seeing something real. Your visual system's just misinterpreting it based on a typically reliable set of heuristics that don't apply in this one specific case, which is why you can't just stop seeing it. You're stuck with your brain working how it works. Your brain's interpreting data from a set of tools which, within their jurisdiction of operation, seem to be pretty good considering that you can use them to try not to die, and then most of the time you don't, at least on the basis of misunderstanding what they're telling you.
If the brain has never left your head and it has been in complete and utter darkness forever and ever and ever and ever and ever for as long as you've been existing in this physical form.
I think I've adequately addressed this. I guess all I have to say is I find the implication here really interesting. That you would have a more accurate, more truthful, more physical reality-based understanding of the world if you removed your brain from your skull and let it directly experience the real world outside the darkness of the skull without interfacing with it through the eyes. I'm not clear on how that would lead to better results.
Well, the truth is, the brain processes light, but it doesn't decide what you see.
Well, yeah, I agree. Because of what you said, the brain is processing signals from the light that your eyes are receiving. It's based on reality, albeit indirectly. Your brain's not making some arbitrary decision about what to see. It processes what it receives and tries to interpret that input accurately, in a way that's going to enable you to interact with the world around you with reasonable accuracy. And it's not even doing that as a matter of decision that implies some kind of conscious choice. It just works the way that it works.
It doesn't decide what you see. That is your conscious mind, your soul mind, okay?
Wait, so the results of the brain's visual processing are a decision. It's just not a decision made by my brain. It's a decision made by something else, which is not my brain, and may or may not reside inside my brain. I'm not sure. And that's my soul mind, which apparently is the same thing as my conscious mind, so I'm making a conscious decision to see the world how I see it. Okay? No, that's definitely not true. Wait a second, though. What you see on the outside is a reflection of who you are on the inside. I thought you were talking about physiognomy, but no, you were talking about this. Oh no, what a terrible misunderstanding.
And that's your proof.
What?
That is your proof.
No, it is not.
It is not the brain that decides what a tree looks like, and what a butterfly looks like, and what an animal looks like, and what my laundry looks like.
I know. We already agreed on that. That was the stuff about it processing light and using the eyes as tools. But now, apparently, this is proof that you actually just decide what you're going to see using your conscious soul mind, which is a leap in reasoning so huge I have no idea how you thought you were going to make it unscathed. Reminds me of the time Homer Simpson's skateboard jumped over Springfield Gorge, and it's going to go about as well.
It is your inner creator. You're the creator. Your conscious soul mind is the creator. Not the human ego mind, but your conscious soul mind is what decides what Earth looks like.
How many minds do I have? I got the brain that does something mind-like, I assume. Maybe not, I don't know. Then I got the conscious soul mind that apparently just makes up whatever it wants about what reality looks like, independent of any connection to reality at all. And then I also have a human ego mind. What does that one do? How does it relate to the other ones? Is it another presumably non-physical entity like the conscious soul mind? Does it ever get a chance to make up what the Earth looks like, or does the conscious soul mind hog that all for itself all the time?
And collectively, before you're born, collectively the souls are agreeing on making trees and making animals and all of that.
All of my souls collectively, or everybody's souls collectively? And what exactly do you mean that they're agreeing on? You say making trees and animals and stuff, but do you mean actual trees and animals, like the physically real things, or do you mean the visual representations of them? I guess what I'm asking is the idea that everybody on Earth gets their souls together in like a big soul chamber before anybody gets born, and we all decide what we want the Earth to physically be like, and then we come to Earth, and then our conscious soul mind decides how to interpret it also? I thought I had a fairly good grasp on this video for a while. Now I don't.
But it is the conscious mind that creates this Earth.
Okay, but not the Earth, though. Not the Earth, but how you see the Earth. You said the conscious soul mind does the seeing. Or no, actually, not the seeing. The brain does the seeing. The conscious soul mind does the deciding about what you're seeing is going to look like when you see it. But nevertheless, it's not conjuring the actual, literal, physical Earth and the actual trees and the actual animals, right?
It is not what you see that creates the Earth. It is what your consciousness chooses to see that will appear.
That will appear to you as the thing that you see. Okay, so it sounds like you do believe that the eyes receive light and signals go up the optic nerve and your brain processes all of that, and your brain does the seeing, except that the seeing that the brain does doesn't result in what you see, because then your conscious mind comes along and just randomly decides what it wants to see and sees that instead. So what's the point of even bringing up the physical visual system at all? It apparently has nothing to do with what you actually end up seeing. You just said it yourself. It's not what you see that creates the world. Your conscious mind decides what's going to appear. Unless you are talking about your conscious mind actually deciding what's going to be in front of you for your brain to see, which would be a whole different thing if you're consciously conjuring physical animals and trees into your field of vision.
Is that going to make sense?
No! Why would that make sense?
Same thing with hearing.
You have ears and a brain that do stuff, but then you just decide to hear whatever the hell you want. And or conjure physical air vibrations, consistent with the pre-birth decisions of the Soul Council, of course.
Right?
No, I don't think so.
What is hearing? It is basically your inner drum picking up vibrations and turning that into a sound in your brain. But who says that a bird actually sounds like a bird?
This is again the same confusion about what it is to represent reality, as if your brain uses incoming data to form a representation of reality based on something real, but the representation itself is not somehow out there in the world. It must be based on nothing real, but that's nonsense. That doesn't follow. Your brain is measuring real airwave frequencies, picked up by a real biological device, and turning that into an experience of the world, which, yes, you can act upon consciously, but that doesn't lead in any way to these conclusions you want it to lead to. You're taking this in all kinds of bizarre directions for which you've presented no justification at all.
Maybe to a bird it sounds completely different to itself.
Yes, maybe the bird hears different frequencies. Maybe the bird's brain processes this input differently, experiences it differently. See, I'm with you that far, that the qualia experienced as a result of interpreting the world through the senses can very likely be different between different organisms. But that doesn't get you to, therefore your brain doesn't do the hearing, and it's actually your conscious soul mind doing the hearing, making a conscious decision about how everything is to it, and then also having decided this before it was born in a meeting of everybody's souls. All of that stuff is where you lose me.
Because it's you. You're the creator of your outer reality.
No, you're the creator of your inner experience of outer reality, and that's not a conscious decision. Even if it were, you're not creating reality, aside from the reality of the experience that you're creating. Seems to me reality's reality, regardless of how you interpret it. You're not the creator of reality in any meaningful sense. If sight and hearing exist and have any connection to reality whatsoever, which you seem to kind of think they do, with all the talk about the brain seeing and hearing things, you're responding to reality.
That's why Spirit says what you feel, what you are on the inside is what you will perceive on the outside.
Okay, again, who is Spirit? Who is this person you're talking to? Let me talk to him. Put him on the phone. Logicked. Oh, hello. Yes, Spirit. I didn't expect to hear from you, actually. What do you want? Did you tell her all this stuff? I've never met her in my life. Really? So you never said any of this stuff? No, this is slander of libel. Sorry to hear that, Spirit. Best of luck to you. Goodbye.
The outer world is simply a reflection of your energetic vibration and your conscious creation.
That's really not what it is.
That's really what it is.
No, it's not. Or at least you didn't bother to argue that it was. This is supposed to be you proving that that's the case, but you just said a bunch of uncontroversial stuff about how your brain interprets signals from your eyes, and then said that leads to this conclusion. Just 'cause. It doesn't lead to this conclusion, Emanuelle. It doesn't lead to anything like it. In fact, it points away from it for reasons I already stated. Somehow this reminds me of the guy that said Allah can fit the whole universe inside of an egg because you can fit an entire skyscraper inside of your eye.
If you go to New York and you see all those skyscrapers, have you ever wondered how Allah fits that whole building into an eye? If my Lord can fit all of that into an eye, then you think my Lord can't fit the universe into an egg?
Except instead of the real skyscraper from the outer world getting jammed into your eyeball when you see it, it's you seeing it jams it into the outer world.
Does that kind of make sense?
Seriously?
Does that kind of make sense? Think about it.
Okay, hold on. Alright, I thought about it. It doesn't make sense.
Right? Just really sit with it and think about it.
No, I think I spent enough time on that.
What decides that the grass is green? You do.
Okay, no, that's not a decision, a conscious decision. But regardless, you wouldn't be deciding anything about the grass. You would be deciding how you wanted it to feel when your eyes detect the frequencies of light that bounce off the grass, which are what they are regardless of how you feel about it. Look, there's grass behind you. It looks whatever you think green looks like. Now I've messed up all the colors in the picture. Is the grass different now? No, because the picture is not the grass. The map is not the territory. My perception is not reality itself.
What decides that the grass is green? You do. Because your conscious mind is accepting that that is what it's like.
Okay, to clarify, if I did have conscious control over my visual perception of the grass, and I could make any decision about it that I wanted, as the god of my perceptual universe, yes, I could decide that the grass was anything. I could decide that the grass was made of meat. I could make a decision to be factually incorrect. Which, by the way, I would be if I decided that grass is in fact purple, but that something with the exact same light frequencies bouncing off of it isn't. That would be a straight-up factual inaccuracy. Regardless of what the sensation of greenness is like to me, which, yes, may vary between organisms, it's still green. Physically, it's still what it is. I don't change that by thinking about it, or deciding about it, or accepting about it.
But the grass might look completely different to an ET because in their conscious mind, it has a different color.
And now we're back to the uncontroversial point. See, we keep veering back and forth from the Bailey to the Mott, from the really big, insane, difficult-to-defend claims to the pretty mundane, uncontroversial claims. You keep sort of dipping back into this simple little kernel of truth in what you're saying to fill up your legitimacy tank before you go back to the weird stuff.
Even though you might be in the same location, they might still perceive it differently.
Yes, very simple, very obviously true. Everybody's with you with no difficulty on this part.
And then draw that further.
And there's the problem. Every time you've drawn it further so far, it's gotten ridiculous.
How you see the reality is not always how another person sees the reality. But does that mean they're wrong? No, you're both right.
No, you can be wrong. Again, all the stuff about the eyes and the optic nerves and the brain processing information that it receives about the outside world, it can be wrong about that. If it looks at your grass and sees Mickey Mouse instead, your representation of reality has an issue. And you know what? Usually when people have that issue, they're not just nonchalantly going, yeah, of course, I put Mickey Mouse there consciously. I'm the god of my own universe. I create the world. No, they're like, why is Mickey Mouse showing up in the middle of my field of view? Help me!
Because this is a virtual projection of your conscious acceptant mind. What you feel your world will look like is what you will perceive.
Now, I strongly doubt that if you feel like grass is going to look one color today and the opposite color tomorrow, that's going to happen. I don't think your visual cortex gives a damn what you feel about how things should look. Just more assertions heaped on top of the pile.
with your tools. And what the brain will use your conscious creation, what things look like and feel like for you. Your brain will use that information and project it outwards.
Okay, I can sort of understand what you're saying there, in the sense that your brain takes in the visual signal, processes it, figures out kind of how to categorize the stuff you're seeing, where it is in relation to each other, what color sensation to assign to different parts of it, and so on. But then with that processed result, if we're going to put this into probably slightly inaccurate step-by-step technological type terms, but it takes that result with all of its depth perception and color qualia and prioritization of specific objects and everything else, and it creates a very compelling feeling that that is what is around you, that you're in your vision. What you see, of course, is not the actual world, but your brain's interpretation of signals representing it. But it feels very compellingly like it is the actual world. It feels like it's out there. When you say your brain projects it outwards, I think that's kind of what you mean. And to that extent, I agree. But even so, the overall thing you're saying here, I still really disagree with. So you have tools that are eyes, and you have a brain, and your brain uses what your conscious mind thinks or decides that everything should look or feel like, and then projects that out onto the world. But then what did the tools, the eyes, have to do with it? What did the visual processing of the real visual data have to do with anything? That provides a real link to reality. It means that aside from superficialities, there is a right and a wrong way to perceive things within a certain domain. There's a way that's going to get you killed and a way that's going to lead to you surviving. There's a way that's going to lead to you finding the food and a way that's going to lead to you thinking the lion is made of berries and popsicles and going up and giving it a lick. But the assertion is there is no right or wrong answer, that you conjure the reality, or at least the perception of the reality, and no matter what you conjure, you're correct, which implies a total break with your sensory tools that actually interface with actual reality. You know, I could be persuaded that you're just trying to talk about the same thing I'm talking about, but in very, very silly, confusing, misleading terms. Just some simple observations baked into a bunch of spiritual mumbo-jumbo to obfuscate them for no reason. But I don't know, some of the things that come up here, though, it's pretty hard to interpret them in that way. And if that's the intended meaning, it's very hard to perceive it that way. Maybe I gotta take my conscious soul mind into the shop, give it a tune-up.
So you're not perceiving the outside inwards. You're projecting the inner understanding, the inner creation, the inner light outwards.
See, that's an example of the kind of thing I mean that makes it really hard to see this as just you trying to say realistic things in weird language. Because if it means anything at all to have eyes and optic nerves and a brain processing that input, if that system does anything meaningful, then yes, you are perceiving the outside inwards. You're not making up the world and projecting it outwards. At least not exclusively, and in no sense further than what I said before.
I don't know if everybody's going to get that one, but...
Yeah, no, I don't get it. Even so, though, I'm still not fully convinced that we're thinking about it so differently that that gap is unbridgeable. I think a lot of this is vocabulary and just different ways of conceptualizing the same thing, but I don't think that's all of it. I think that we definitely have some major sticking points here. I'm just not exactly sure how many and which ones.
Just let it sink in. It'll get to you.
Don't hold your breath on that.
All right. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to continue with my laundry. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Oh, okay, bye. Well, that was fun, actually. Nice change of pace. So, obviously, I found the way that she presented that kind of frustrating. But, I don't know. She seems pretty cool. The cheerfulness kind of rubbed off on me. Little contact cheerfulness high there. I'm still not convinced that I'm God, though. Sorry, Christians. Can't get me on that one yet. Anyway, subscribe. See you later.